Hey, Margie here. If you have any issues with constipation, you absolutely want to tune in to today's podcast because it's not okay to not have a bowel movement every day. A lot of people think, oh, no big deal. Well, it's a very big deal. It's going to negatively affect your bones, your overall health, your happiness. And the good news is there's so much that can be done. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What can you do to reduce constipation? And our special guest is Elissa Arnheim, who's a certified holistic health coach, a certified fermentationist, and holds an MS in ecological planning. When her son was diagnosed with a rare and highly aggressive tumor at age 2, she went deep into research on gut health to help him heal from the cancer, surgeries, chemo, and trauma, and discovered that applying the principles of ecology to the gut microbiome is crucial to repair and rebalance every system in the body. Now, Alyssa helps people of all ages drastically reduce inflammation and restore their gut microbiome so that they can feel good and just improves their own health and happiness. And today, as I mentioned, we're talking about constipation. So make sure to stay tuned. Welcome, Alyssa. I'm so glad to have you here on the podcast.
Hi, Margie. It is so great to see you again. And it's really a privilege to get to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Well, this is such an important topic, constipation, because so many people suffer with it. And a lot of people just think, oh, no big deal. But we're going to show them that there's so many things they can do. But before we get started, I just love to hear the backstory, how you got into dealing with, constipation, other things, as well as just in general, the work you do. You want to just share your backstory a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, with regard to constipation, there have been times in my life where I was really constipated. Like I was constipated as a kid, but I didn't know it. Nobody really talked about it. And then traveling a couple of times, I've had some really crazy constipation experiences. The most dramatic was when as someone suggested that we take anti-diarrheal medication the whole time we were traveling. And I was just like, oh, what a good idea, because I had had some really crazy illnesses before when I was traveling. And I got home and I didn't poop for weeks, and I couldn't eat anything because my whole body would immediately go into shock. Like I would get like a weak thready pulse, my heart would be racing, I would get sweaty. It was that bad. And so I finally got some fleet enemas, and then I had to stay home from work because I was like, making up for lost time pooping like, nonstop, right? So maybe too much information there. But I think this is such a common problem that I want people to start talking about this, because we're actually, as human beings, supposed to be eliminating one or more times a day, 1 to 3 times a day. A soft, long banana shape is what is really normal for human beings. And it's pretty common that people are, thinking that, if I'm going a few times a week, that's good, right? But it's not good. And the way I started, the way I kind of launched into really talking about constipation and putting on a whole event about constipation relief is that I've been helping kids for a long time. I've been helping kids with picky eating in particular. And I thought I'd figured out, oh, here are the 4 reasons that kids become picky eaters, and we can totally reverse all these things. But there's a 5th one, and that one is constipation. When kids are constipated, they don't want to eat anything because they're full. There's no room. Just like I was going into shock because my body was like, no room. These kids just naturally, they're not going to eat if there's no room. But the foods we offer kids are really mind altering. That's kind of dramatic, but they're soothing. The gluten, the dairy have those opiates in them. That's why people love them. They're comfort foods. And when kids are constipated and they have all these belly aches, like they're feeling bad and they want something that will make them feel soothed. So they're gonna eat those things. They're gonna eat the sugar. It's an upper. So it's really understandable how these picky eaters kind of evolve with all of these modern foods that are available and these modern stressors that are available, and so we end up there. So that's what I really wanted to share, and it just got bigger. Of course there are plenty of adults that are also more or less picky eaters, but but they don't know that there's a solution.
So what's your definition of constipation? How would you define it?
So if you are sitting on the toilet and you are not feeling like you're done, you need to have that done feeling like you're empty. If you are not having a bowel movement at least once a day, 1 to 3 times a day, and if it is anything less than what's a type 3 or a type 4 on the Bristol stool chart, which is ideally that 4, that number 4. In our house, we call it a cool dude number 4 because my son, I shared with him a Bristol stool chart that had been remade for kids, and the number 4 has sunglasses on it. His thumbs up. It's really cute. So ideally that long, soft banana shape, or more like a kind of a lumpy sausage, but not too hard. So we're really going into the nitty-gritty details of poop here. Sometimes I don't really get too poopy when we're talking about this, but I guess I am
I
today.
think it's so important though for people listening because people may not think. Can you talk about some of the ones that are not healthy? Like a lot of people have maybe small, hard, round balls. Like can
Oh
you
yeah,
just
little rabbit pellets. Little
yeah, can you
rabbit
just
pellets and
share a few of the things that people may be having and have no clue that this is not what we're supposed to be doing?
yeah, well, I think you hit on the biggest deceptor is maybe someone is having bowel movements every day, but they're just like little pellets, like little rabbit poops, like a few little pebbles. That's not enough. I mean, think about how much you're eating. And then if it's painful, if you sit down to have a bowel movement, you're feeling the urge and nothing comes out, you're straining. There are so many people that are having a lot of pain. They're having pain in their belly. They're getting bloated, lots of gas, lots of discomfort. If it's uncomfortable after you've eaten, it could be constipation. It could be some other things like SIBO or small intestinal fungal overgrowth, where the bacteria and the microbes, the fungus, are in the wrong place, and so that's causing your bloating. Or it could just be that your microbes are doing their work, but but it's backed up. There's no way for well, when you're not pooping, the whole system backs up and you end up with microbes that like garbage, because basically you're hanging on to garbage. And we have so many different microbes in our digestive system, and there's a huge diversity of helpful microbes, and they don't like to hang out in garbage. So when you're not having a bowel movement at least every day, a full bowel movement, then you're really setting the stage. You're filling your internal environment with waste that attracts and enables these more pathogenic, less friendly microbes to multiply and really take over the train and kind of like edge out the helpful microbes that will be repairing your gut lining and manufacturing B vitamins and feeding each other really cooperatively and supporting your neurotransmitters and helping you feel good. You want a lot of these different good guys. And the key is making sure you keep your system moving, you keep the garbage going out fully every day so that there is plenty of space for these good, helpful microbes. I think
Plus
I only talked about the pellety problem, but anything that's pellety, super hard, too big, painful, if you're getting hemorrhoids or fissures or having any of this kind of pain, there are so many options and you can reverse it.
well, that's I think the best news is that there's so much that can be done and people don't have to live with it because it really is pretty miserable and it really sets you up for illness. I mean, that's not a healthy way to live with your gut,
Mm-mm,
at all.
mm-mm. And it's really connected to a lot of other health challenges. If you're so sometimes eating, so it's really important to know your body. Um, and in many cases, getting more vegetable fibers is really going to be helpful. In some cases, it is not going to be helpful. Um, but typically it is. And when you're bringing in more vegetables and kind of trading out some of the less healthy food for dark leafy greens and different colors of vegetables, lots of different flavors and fibers, you're feeding a diversity of those good gut bugs that are going to help you regulate your blood sugar. They're going to help you detox your body. They're going to feed these microbes that support your mental health. So just getting rid of the constipation, just figuring that out for yourself is really going to have a positive impact on so many dimensions of your health that maybe you won't need to deal with some of those other things. It's not a magic cure, but it's going to simultaneously improve outcomes all over the place.
The issue is that it's not one size fits all. There's numerous reasons that people have constipation. What have you found in your practice are the most common ones that you've been seeing?
Well, hugely in kids, constipation is triggered by dairy, which is so sad because so many kids love the cheese and the milk and all of that stuff. And it's become a cultural norm, like, got milk and milk does a body good and all these things. We're really programmed to believe that it's healthy to drink milk. And it also causes inflammation. And that's really well established. And it also has these opiate compounds in it, in the proteins. And most people know that if you get opiate pain drugs, like if you have a procedure, everyone's always ready for the horrible constipation that comes with the pain medications. And we've got these substances in like the top two kid foods and honestly, the top two grown up foods, gluten and dairy. So for so many kids, just taking out the dairy is the biggest reversal of constipation, and people can't believe it. So, so it's really important just to try out like what happens if I'm not eating these commonly constipating foods. It's not a life sentence. You don't have to quit eating it forever. Um, but it's really important for you to know what happens to my body when I do this because a lot of people think their body just doesn't work. They're like, "Oh, this is my family history. It's in my genes. Oh, this is this is just the way my body is. It doesn't work right." But that's not true. All of our bodies are really amazing at healing all the time, but we just have to like take out the things that are interrupting what our bodies are really good at. And so I love helping people through a 2 to 4 week elimination and reintroduction to find out what really happens. And then you get to choose.
And so do you do both at the same time, getting rid of gluten and dairy? How do you do your elimination?
Yeah, I really love to help families remove gluten and dairy at the same time because it's hard. It's hard to do an elimination. I'd rather do it more quickly, all at once. And a note about that is it's important to reintroduce the gluten and the dairy separately, like 5 days apart, because it can take up to 5 days for us to actually feel a reaction to food. It takes a while sometimes for those consequences to roll out in our body and our physical body and our mental health. Um, and even though I really advocate for making lower sugar swaps and having less sugar in our diet, I I really lean on sugar to get through gluten and dairy elimination because we are so dependent on these foods. And I don't want this to be a horrible experience, and kids are going to be upset, and grown-ups are going to be upset. I have lots of parents that get really upset about this. And so I introduce ideas like, okay, so we're not going to have the bagel and cream cheese this morning, but put out a dairy-free ice cream sundae. Like, do something, like give them cookies, like gluten-free, dairy-free cookies. Like, really distract them, really make it so fun and like a party every day. Prizes, like just do your best to make it fun and distract your kids from the thing that they were expecting. Just especially so you can get through that first week of setting kind of some new normals and letting their body kind of calm down from that addiction, because it really is addiction.
So interesting, and yeah, I've seen just amazing things happen with an elimination diet, and it's interesting that's the first place that you start usually.
Well, it depends on the situation. And for kids, I think it's helpful. But you know what? Actually, to back up here a little bit, I actually do a lot of prep for everyone leading into this. Like, so many of us are depleted in magnesium, of course. And I'm sure lots of your viewers know this. And magnesium calms our excitatory neurotransmitters. So having lots of magnesium on board before you do something like, let's change what we eat for breakfast, that's really important, because if someone gets surprised or upset, you want them to have tons of magnesium available in their system to calm down those excitatory neurotransmitters, or you're going to have a kid or an adult that's upset, for like an hour because you can't recover unless you have that magnesium. So we start with some of that. We also, I love to teach brain calming and emotion calming techniques, like, big breaths, emotional regulation, just taking a few deep breaths, which I know you are so good at all of these body, mind, emotional regulation techniques as well. Um, tapping is another one to kind of calm our bodies using the emotional freedom technique, tapping like this. And so I like to have a few calming techniques that have already been practiced before I introduce the actual elimination, and have a really good strategy for the elimination, because it is so um life changing. But there
No,
are
it's
so many. Go ahead, ask
no,
me.
no, it's so interesting because magnesium is my go-to, and I just can't get over with magnesium citrate, how that is the friend of reducing constipation, and so many people who
Mhm,
switched to magnesium citrate, didn't really realize they had a problem, and by just increasing magnesium citrate or even using calm magnesium, people
mhm.
were truly able to, get off medication and really improve, start getting normal bowel movements. But my question to you is then if you did so I guess you wouldn't do the magnesium citrate because then you might not know if the elimination diet helps, right?
Yeah, you
Because
know what? You are so right, and I'm glad you brought up the magnesium citrate, because in an emergency situation, like when an adult comes to me and they just need to poop, yes, magnesium citrate is a perfect front line. That is so my favorite three things, if we're not going to the root causes at first, if we're just going to, like, get the relief: magnesium, a stool in front of the toilet. There are a lot of really great toilet stools that get your body in a squatting position, which most of us have forgotten that as human beings, like, that's how we used to poop. Um, and so these beautiful, elegant, stylish stools look really nice in your bathroom, and they get your knees up and your hips bent. And it just allows it's the puborectalis muscle, to release and open. It's like opening a magic trap door, um, so that you can have a bowel movement without any restriction. And that really supports having that fully emptied feeling. Like, I like to think of, like, when you take your dog outside and they do their business, and then they're like, when they like kick their legs and they run around and they're so happy, like, it should feel that good. It should be so fast. It should be as fast as urinating, actually. Feel totally empty. So the stool, the squatting stool, the magnesium, because it draws water into your bowel, and if you're and that helps bulk up your stool so that your body receives the right messages as it's expanding in your colon, uh, and triggers the need to have a bowel movement. Um, and I have another favorite thing, which is to have 2 big glasses of water first thing in the morning. Um, by traditional Chinese medicine, 5 to 7 in the morning is colon time, and that's a great time to super hydrate your body. Have a little bit of sea salt in the water. Those extra minerals and electrolytes really help your body be able to absorb the water. And so many of us are now, we're so careful and aware of all of the toxins that are in our water and air and all these places. And so we filter our water, but we actually need some of these natural substances, the minerals, and some of these salts, so that our body recognizes it. And so it's familiar enough and more closely matched for our human needs so that it's more easily absorbed into the cells. And this typically triggers um, a nice bowel movement in the morning also. So
And since
if
we're
you
so, unfortunately, the society is really dehydrated. It's a huge, huge, huge problem.
yeah.
And, for some people, I know like my husband who has to who wears a mask all day in the office. And, it's really hard. It's hard to drink the same amount of water. So I
Yeah.
think that's such a good point because then at least you're getting 2 glasses early on, you know, just
Mhm.
another way to help reduce the dehydration that's so, so common. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
majorly contributes to this whole constipation problem itself.
Of course it does. So when we eat our food, it gets chewed up, it gets the digestion begins actually in our mouth with the enzymes in our saliva and our chewing teeth. Moves into the stomach for some more digestion, moves into the small intestine where the small nutrient parts are absorbed into across that 1 cell thick intestinal wall into our bloodstream. Um, and the chewed up food keeps moving through our small intestine. And when it gets to our large intestine, into our colon, that's where our body pulls the moisture out of that chewed up food to be recycled into our body. And so it usually just has, maybe a day of this process of eating food and then coming out the other end. And so it's not a very long time that it's normally supposed to be in our colon. So a certain amount of water is absorbed, reabsorbed, and then it's eliminated. But if that stool is sitting in our large intestine for longer and longer, our body keeps reabsorbing the water. And so it makes that stool harder and harder and harder and drier. And so that's going to make it really, really hard to have a comfortable, quick, painless bowel movement. So that's part of why it's really important to keep up this rhythm and do whatever you need to do to get into a rhythm of eliminating fully every day. And and you're right, Margie. Then after you have mastered just this rhythm, then that's a great time to consider doing a gluten and dairy elimination when you have a window of relief. And and there are a lot of um, there are a lot of other methods that you can actually support healthy elimination by calming the messages coming from your brain, by relaxing your body and the musculature around your torso. And you are really phenomenal at this. You shared so many demonstrations for the summit coming up. I really
Well,
appreciate
why don't we talk about that? Because this is, Alyssa's just doing the tip of the iceberg here, but you have an entire summit with so many hours worth of to help people really with healthy elimination. So why don't you share a little bit about what the summit's about?
Yeah, thank you for asking. We have 40 experts sharing interviews, demonstrations, case studies, talking about their recipes, doing show and tell of their favorite supplements and equipment and all kinds of things that you have never dreamed of that will help your body eliminate. And it's it's a big event. It's got a lot of information. And like I said, it's full of demonstrations that will actually support you every time you see them. So once you learn a few of these things and get a few new habits, a lot of possibility is going to open up as far as immediate relief and long-term relief, so that you can just feel really confident and know how to take care of your body and what your choices are. Um, because there are so many different situations in life. It's important to know a few different solutions, because if you're traveling, you might not have your normal food. If there's a stressful event, you might have the kind of body where that really, really tightens your whole system and can interrupt your healthy elimination. So I've tried to interview all of the experts to cover all of the bases so that every different person has what they need, because everybody's different, of course.
I love the smorgasbord effect because it is, every person's different, and you need to try. If this hasn't worked, then you need to try something else, because it really is truly miserable to live like this, and a lot of people will have massive gas, they'll have burping. I mean, when you're not when people don't even realize the cause of that is constipation, when,
Mhm.
because they're not eliminating every day, that things are backing up, and it's just causing havoc everywhere. But
Mhm.
I have to share what I did on the summit, because I decided, from my physical therapy background, I I teach people a colon massage and how you can do that, and so I showed that on the summit, as well as movement. Lotion is motion, and motion is lotion, and it's so important. You really need those intestines really need to be moving, so I showed something called the pelvic clock exercise, a qigong exercise,
And the
as
reverse Kegel.
right, right, I
Reverse
showed the reverse Kegel, because so often people are so tight, and
or clench.
they don't realize they can just sort of relax. So that was sort of my contribution. So I can only imagine all of the people and all of the possibilities that exists on the summit. What are some of your other favorites? What are some of the things that
Let's see. We had someone show all of her equipment for I'm forgetting the word for it. Not colon hydrotherapy, coffee
enema?
enemas.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we talked a lot about there were several different kinds of massage, actually. We learned about different kinds of microbes and how they change. And we looked at some different fibers. Oh my gosh, there were so many, so many.
Oh, that's great, and I love one of the free gifts, just when people register for the summit, that you created, which I think was so great, is about the different fermented vegetables, because a lot of people don't realize how powerful this is, and this is something, that's so easy to put into your life. You wanna share a little bit about that sheet that you created? It was
Oh, yeah,
excellent.
sure. It's a really simple how-to guide. A lot of people, when you talk about fermented vegetables or sauerkraut, they say, "Oh no, I won't like that." And but actually our bodies really crave it. And so if you give yourself just like a little window to try it out and follow this, it's a step-by-step guide. And it's designed to help you fall in love with eating sauerkraut. Like, you don't have to force yourself. It's really natural to crave these microbe-filled kind of medicinal foods, because it's so good for our digestion and for our mental health and our immunity. And the guide includes a video if you want to make your own fermented vegetables. It's super easy. And so there's a video with me and my son just making it before we left for camp one day. And there's a little section about equipment that you could consider. And we also included a checklist of different kinds of herbs that are often used to reverse constipation, and how they work in your body. They have different modes of action, and so it's something that you can look at and maybe like grab a bottle of maybe the supplements that you've been taking that were recommended to you to reverse your constipation. And you can see, oh, this is working because it's an irritant, or this is working because it has fiber in it. And if something's working for you, then great. And if something is not working for you, you could maybe look at that sheet and say, oh, I'm going to get something that uses a different method of action or try a different herb or something, just to give you more options to try because your body really was built, everyone's body was built to eliminate every day.
I every single day have fermented vegetables. However, I buy them. And so I'll have to look at your video because it's expensive. It's not cheap. And so, it's not exorbitant, but it's easy to do. It's just something that's not that hard to do. So it's something I've been thinking of. I should really just make it myself, but
Oh, it's so easy. When you get in the hang, or when you once you learn how to do it, it's the kind of thing that you could do every week, like maybe every Sunday over the winter while you're watching a football game, or I don't know. Super easy. You can do
Yeah,
it.
and talk about then the second gift. You have another gift that people might be very interested in.
Oh, are you talking about the special report on Parkinson's and ADHD?
I wasn't
Or
thinking of that, but
oh, I've also got a special gift about how to eat gluten or how to eat bread and cheese while you're doing a gluten and dairy elimination. Very, very handy because I think a lot of people just say no right off the bat when they're told, "Oh, you should take out these couple of foods because they are probably slowing your transit time." Um, and you're thinking, "Well, I eat pasta every night for dinner. I have bagel and cream cheese for breakfast. It kind of pizza for lunch, right?" But in this day and age, oh my gosh, there are so many outrageously delicious substitutes for these things. So I just put together like a quick cheat sheet on some of my favorite replacements and substitutes and what's great about them. And it's a really fabulous starting point for you to explore and figure out how you can replicate your favorite foods without damaging your body.
Oh, it sounds great. I'm excited for the summit because you have so many interesting guests. And as I said, this topic is really, really important. And so many people suffer with this. And it's just, I love when I work with people and then they said, oh gosh, I don't have this anymore. And they're like a different person. I love teaching happiness, but they become happier purely by reducing their constipation. So it's
Absolutely.
it's such a big thing. Is there anything else? Then we'll have all the links to how you can register for the summit and get the gifts and, everything. But is there anything else that you want to share with everybody before we end?
I just want to emphasize that every body is capable of working really, really well. It's just a matter of solving that mystery and finding what works best. So I just wanted to just cheer people on in their pursuit of health and freedom. And thank you so much for asking, Margie. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
and I love that because don't live like this. Do take action no matter what you do. If you're listening to this interview and you have constipation, this is not okay in any way for your bones, for your overall health, for your happiness, there's just nothing okay about it. So just take action. And the summit's a great first step because there's so much that will be there that, you can look at and see what's appetizing for you and where maybe, what resonates with you. Like while you're listening, oh yeah, you know what? That's doable. I can do that. So,
Absolutely. And we're also hosting a pre-event Q&A and strategy session because I know sometimes people get really overwhelmed by how many interviews are in these events. So anyone that wants to show up early and get a little strategy session so that you can pick what might be best for you.
when is that happening? When is
That
that?
is on Thursday, the 19th of January.
Oh, great. So lots of options and lots of resources. Well, thank you so much for being here. And, thank you for doing this because I know you're going to help lots and lots of people, and that's pretty exciting, right? To know all these people who can, dramatically improve their life, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Margie, for all of your good work, and thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Elissa, and now if you are a person that does have constipation, you have some new ideas that you can put into action. I highly recommend her summit because there's just going to be a myriad of all sorts of experts and different things that you can learn about ways that you can reduce constipation. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.